Welcome to a special edition of Legal AF, where I have the honor and privilege of having an interview and a conversation with Attorney General Kris Mayes of the great state of Arizona about issues that our audience is definitely concerned about. Attorney General Mayes, thanks for joining us on Legal AF.
Oh, it's great to be with you. Yeah. Love your show. Watch it all the time.
Thank you. Love your work. We watch that all the time.
Thank you.
In no particular order, but it is in the news, and you did have a role in the release of the Epstein files, or at least the vote on it. Arizona had a special election. There was a representative who won to replace her late father, Representative Adelita Grijalva for the 7th Congressional District, representing 800,000 or more people in Arizona. And she did not get sworn in for almost the entirety of the shutdown of the government. Yeah. And I had her on the show, she believes, as do many Epstein survivors, that because she publicly announced that she was going to be the 218th vote, the final vote, or the final signature on the discharge petition to get that bill to the House floor that just got voted on in the last 48 hours, that was one of the reasons she was being punished by Mike Johnson and by MAGA and not being sworn in. And you had something to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, we, as the top legal officer of the state of Arizona, we felt that we had to take action. And so we sued basically the House of Representatives. We decided not to sue Johnson specifically because we didn't want him to claim immunity.
Right. Although the headlines were, Kris Mayes sues Mike Johnson.
Right. It ended up being that headline anyway. But we had, to your point, we had 813,000 Arizonans who were being taxed without representation. We fought a revolutionary war over that issue. And Adelita had not been sworn in. The governor and I and Secretary of State had certified her weeks before. She was elected, 6 or 8 weeks before that, and before she was sworn in.
She
finally
won 74% of the vote.
Yes, I mean, not that matters.
Right.
I won by 280 votes, but it still counts, right? A W is a W. But to your point, and so we said, look, enough is enough. And decided to file that lawsuit. And, obviously it didn't end up going the distance. We didn't have to because they finally swore her in. But we were going to make the arguments and did make the arguments that it was unconstitutional for him to not swear her in. And it's a relevant issue going forward because what if, obviously if they try this again, hopefully they don't try this again.
Well, they have a great template now with your office and their filing. And I think you had to do it. I mean, we were on Legal AF saying, I wonder when Attorney General Kris Mayes is going to file that mandamus or declaration lawsuit any day now. And then there it was when you could.
Yes.
And we also covered the letter writing that you did to Mike Johnson to demand her to be sworn in and seated. And now we've got, one step closer, hopefully, to justice for the survivors. We have a number of survivors who have been on the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF. I will tell you they were in tears. Many of them were in the galley during the vote.
When she was sworn in, I saw that as well. It was very moving, very moving.
And we'll see. I mean, let's manage expectations here. You've got an aspect of the bill that just got passed that gives the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, the right to withhold the documents if there's an active investigation. And wouldn't you know it, just a week or so before she started an active investigation with using Jay Clayton in the Southern District of New York to do that. What do you think is going to happen here?
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit that I'm a little bit skeptical. Based on what you just said, there's language in the legislation that seems to give wiggle room and gives an opportunity for them to selectively release materials. And that's what I worry about. So how will we know?
Right.
How will we even know if something gets withheld, Michael? Like what's gonna, and then we'll see if things are heavily redacted. Then we're gonna have fights over that. So we'll see. I mean, hopefully, the Congress will stay on them about this. There's a timing issue. When will the documents be released? There's a redaction issue. How much will be redacted? And then there's a fulsomeness issue. How much are they actually going to release?
And why does the President of the United States, as the self-declared chief legal officer for America, get to tell the U.S. attorney to only look at Democrats and ignore his own name in the files?
It's absurd. Right. I mean, it's on its face, it's absurd. And, I think there was some other language that he used, like sort of, legally permissible. I don't know if that's correct, if I've gotten that correct.
The Trump language.
The Trump language was sort of whatever's legally permissible. So there's all kinds of wiggle words in the language that's being used. But we'll see. I mean, we'll have to see what comes out. But at least we got those votes. And boy, think about how far we've come.
Absolutely. Well, listen, let's talk about your role as one of the leaders of the attorneys general on the Democratic side to bring suits against the Trump administration. I don't know if we're up to 40 suits or 50 suits. One of them, though, that everybody's on pins and needles waiting for is the results of by the Supreme Court of whether Donald Trump's placing on 200 countries on an unlimited goods for an indeterminate duration tariffs, which last I looked was an Article 1 power, using a narrow delegated statute of IEPA, International Economic Procedures Act, whether that's going to live or die. And that is, I assume your position is that a tariff is ultimately a tax on the consumer.
Yes,
right?
It is.
Japan's not paying the tariff.
No.
The consumer through the importer is paying the tariff.
Correct.
That's a tax.
It's a tax.
And you were in the United States Supreme Court for that oral argument.
Yes.
So let's handicap it. What did you hear? What do you think?
Well, I was, and I have to tell you, Michael, I think we got a great shot at winning that case based on the questions that the justices themselves, including some very conservative justices like Neil Gorsuch and Justice Roberts, who from the jump was asking very tough questions of the government.
Right. Why isn't this a tax?
Isn't this a day? He said the exact same thing you said, And Neil Gorsuch at the end with his mic drop moment when he said something to the effect of, well, didn't our founding fathers believe that the tariff power and taxing power belonged with Congress?
Right. When you're mentioning the Boston Tea Party, at the Supreme Court, you might be in trouble.
You might have. So I came away hopeful. We'll see. You never know. But boy, I don't know. Based on those questions, I would rather be us than them.
I'm going to run this by you. I would love an advocate before the Supreme Court to put it into sharp terms for them and say a version of, okay, you have a president who's trying to take non-delegable power from Congress on tariff and taxes. What if, under foreign affairs power, the president set up his own court system? Would you be okay with that?
Would you be okay with that?
Why doesn't anybody ever ask a question like that to the Supreme Court?
Right. Well, but I think that was what was running through some of their minds, which was, if we allow this president to do this, what else are we going to allow? And what else will another president think that he or she can assume unto themselves? Or, what if, I think one of the justices brought up the question, well, what if a future president decides that they want to tariff or tax countries based on climate change, right?
Right.
I mean,
great question.
Great question. And I mean, you couldn't ask about
I think it was Sotomayor.
Maybe Sotomayor.
Yeah.
I mean, and so you could see that, I think, running through their heads, like, oh yeah, okay, future presidents could take this and run with it as well.
I think if I remember, because we did put it up on Legal AF, the full oral argument, I think Sauer's response was, the administration doesn't agree that there is climate change issues. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's right.
Some weird, he had to stay in his
It was such a bizarre
response.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, what did you make of even Amy Coney Barrett, who I think is firmly over with the independent wing of the Supreme Court, the moderate wing, in some of her questioning?
Yeah, I definitely thought that her questioning was great. I mean, I got a little concerned when she got so far into the sort of licensing questioning line, but ultimately, I think she was also very skeptical of the president using this tariff power this way.
I loved watching John Sauer, the Solicitor General, squirm when Amy Coney Barrett said to him, you put a lot of weight on the word regulate. Right. Why aren't you putting more weight on the word license? Like, she's trying to throw him maybe a softball. Yeah. But even then, we could do license. Let's try license. Like, no, that's not. No. But Gorsuch, I talked to people who are very familiar with the court, and although listening to Gorsuch, you'd think, with the one-way ratchet comment and the mic drop comment you mentioned about, our founders and why we separated. But there were other things. People were like, don't trust Gorsuch. He'll say things during oral argument, but then we don't really know where he's at.
Yeah, it's interesting. I still think with, the number of the justices asking tough questions and being very skeptical, I felt good coming out of it. Also, I would say this, how do you, and you mentioned IEPA at the jump, these are justices who consistently say we need to read the text of the law, right?
Amy
How
Coney,
can you not side with us if that's your guiding principle?
Again, if I was an advocate before the Supreme Court, and I've done oral argument before appellate court, just not the Supremes, I would say, well, as Justice Amy Coney Barrett said in her book, when you're doing statutory interpretation, read the statute, read the statute, read the statute.
Yes.
Okay, so whether it's under textualism or statutory interpretation or any of their normal interpretive models, originalism, how do they come away with the president can impose 200 tariffs around the world because he feels like it, let alone the ones that are punitive, like, I don't like what's going on in Brazil with their Trump, 50%, or India. It's just...
Well, Michael, I think that also, and this didn't come up in the oral arguments, and I understand why, because we're arguing about the law, but I think we can't forget the impact of these tariffs.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Why are you so out in front for Arizonans about the tariffs?
Because it's killing our consumers. It's killing our small businesses. I mean, 62% of Americans say they believe prices have gone up on them in the last year. I've done multiple roundtables across Arizona on this issue with small businesses. They are telling me that the price of their inputs, like, home builders, cabinet costs gone up by 30%. Cattle ranchers down on our southern border with Mexico, can't get cattle across and can't sell cattle. Farmers being impacted here as well. The impacts are huge. And so that's why Dan Rayfield and I co-led this case. And it's so important. I don't think from an economic standpoint, the Supreme Court has dealt with a more important case in at least 100 years.
In a weird way, Trump should hope they tear it down because it's killing the economy under him. And he's the one that's getting the voter ire is against him. The best thing, the Wall Street Journal wrote, the best thing that would ever happen is that for Trump is that he loses on the tariffs.
In a weird way, the AGs may save Trump from Trump. This, but really will be saving our economy from this and saving our consumers. And that's what this is about at the end of the day, is protecting Arizonans. Yeah. And that's why we're going to, prosecute it all the way through. And
the other thing that's on on the minds of our audience, especially coming off of a big election night in America a couple of weeks ago, is the elections at midterm. And your office very publicly prosecuted 18 people related to the last election, presidential election, 11 electors, fake electors, we refer to them in shorthand, and 7 people in the inner circle for Donald Trump, including many of his lawyers. Many of those people have now received a federal pardon, although that doesn't help them with your case. I don't want to focus so much on what's happening with your particular case, but what does it mean for the future? What is your Attorney General office going to do to ensure people that their vote is going to count, that we're not going to have another certification problem, or, God forbid, Donald Trump makes good on his attempts or his people around him to try to get on the ballot for a third term? What are you prepared to do?
Look, we are prepared to, protect our elections, and we are prepared to enforce the law. And that is what we did when we took the fake electors case to the grand jury, which was, we decided that it was important to present this case, let a grand jury decide. They decided to charge 18 individuals with an attempt in 2020 to essentially overthrow an election. And so what are we prepared to do? We will continue to uphold election law and to make sure that no one tries to overthrow an election.
That's your message to the next fake elector?
Yeah, in a sense, and it's an interesting question because this issue has come up in terms of the fake electors case. There's an anti-SLAPP motion. We won't get too far into it, but basically we have we are the only state in the country that has a criminal anti-SLAPP law that allows defendants to claim that they were engaging in free speech, when they engaged in allegedly criminal acts. And there are civil anti-SLAPP laws across the country as well. What I worry about these anti-SLAPP laws is that they are, get out of jail free card, or or people are trying to use them that way. But criminal law, as you know, is used as a deterrent. We want to deter illegal activity in the future. Arizona has, for instance, a death penalty. We have the death penalty in Arizona, and I think I'm the only Democratic AG carrying out the death penalty in this country right now because it is the law of the land. The death penalty is a deterrent against people committing murder. That is what criminal law is, by and large. It's not just punitive, but it also is designed to be a deterrent against future crime. So yes, do I want to send a message to future bad actors who might try to undermine American democracy? You bet I do. Because that's what the law is about. I am out there saying I'm an attorney general who will enforce the law. That's my job.
Yeah. And AG Mayes, when you said in one of your early statements and speeches against the Trump administration back in February, and so right, you said what we're watching is an ongoing coup and an assault against the Constitution. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think I was one of the first people to say that and to use that word. But I believe strongly that we have to call it what it is, and it still is. This is a president who is trying to overthrow American democracy and who on a daily and weekly basis, Michael, is violating our Constitution. That is why I have sued him 30 times. Because when any president, and I would be doing this if it was a Democrat in power as well, violates our Constitution, violates the law, it is the job of the state AGs to push back on that. And by the way, those 30 lawsuits that I have filed in conjunction with the other Democratic AGs, I wish some Republicans would join us, but they're not, obviously.
Not one of them.
Not a single one,
Yeah.
not on a single one of these lawsuits. We have saved Arizona $1.5 billion with our 30 lawsuits. So think about how much the Republican states are losing because they're not joining our lawsuits.
And you do this all with lawyers, your legal team, your law department.
Yes.
As opposed to you don't hire law firms.
No.
This is all done with your people.
This is our people,
Yeah.
basically my Solicitor General's office, same with the other AGs. And I know you're interviewing a bunch of us today. We work together on these lawsuits. We meet with each other every other day by Zoom personally, the AGs. All 23 of us.
I think we're breaking news on Legal AF. Every other day,
Yeah.
the 23 Democratic attorneys
Correct.
general meet to talk about what's happening in the Trump administration and how to oppose it.
We Zoom in from
Yeah.
our respective state capitals and we talk about the litigation and the strategy and venue and all of and what we think might be coming next. So, we're hearing rumors about, Trump doing this. What do we need to do to get ready for it? And it really all started almost a year ago in Philadelphia after Trump was elected.
As most things do.
True, including the birth of our nation,
Right.
right? So it was actually kind of fitting that we met there to start talking about this and start working with each other and planning what we knew was going to be a heavy lift. I don't think anybody knew that we were going to have to do this many lawsuits, but that's where we're at.
I mean, when you got the job and you campaign, and you thought about what your day-to-day responsibilities were going to be, did you ever envision that you'd have to go up against what I've called the most corrupt Department of Justice in history?
No. I mean, and it's certainly not on my bucket list. It was not something that I ever really wanted to write. I mean, and the other work of the office continues. As you know, I've made a priority out of filing antitrust cases. We're fighting a company called RealPage for jacking up rent in Arizona. We are fighting, a Saudi company in Western Arizona that is dewatering our aquifers.
Like you have a day job for the citizens, the residents of Arizona.
Yeah, I ran to be a lawyer for the people of Arizona. We continue to do that work, combating elder abuse. I do 80% of the large drug trafficking cases in Arizona. We have 50% of all the fentanyl that's seized in the United States is seized here in Arizona. So I've got that. I'm working on that. We do all of those cases. I've seized more fentanyl as Attorney General than any other AG in Arizona history. But no, I mean, we could not have imagined what happened when Donald Trump was elected.
Our audience always, a lot of them did not know what their Attorney General did. I mean, and Attorney Generals are not all built the same way based on statute. Like the Attorney General from New York, where I practice, and Letitia James, she has a whole different set of powers. Not a lot of it criminal, but has tremendous and robust powers on fraud and different things like that, where you have criminal powers.
Yes, we have. So absolutely true. So some states have criminal jurisdiction. I have criminal jurisdiction, but there are states that have criminal jurisdiction over all crimes. I don't have criminal jurisdiction over everything. We have county attorneys here, like district attorneys. But we do major drug cases. We do major fraud cases. Election fraud cases. And so, I mean, I think maybe that's a silver lining that will come out of all of this, which is folks will say, hey, oh, wow, that AG race, that is something that I should be thinking about and voting on. Because keep in mind, and remember, we were just talking about it, I told you we've saved Arizona $1.5 billion. Well, that's because I was elected by 280 votes in the closest statewide race in Arizona history by the people of this state. And because I am here and not a Republican, I'm filing those lawsuits, saving our people that money, because we saved Head Start here. Trump wanted to defund it. We saved Meals on Wheels. We've saved university funding. We saved AmeriCorps. We saved education funding. And those Republican AGs, Michael, they are not filing the lawsuit, so they are losing that money.
Right, and now that the Supreme Court said, well, we're not so sure about nationwide injunctions, they can't surf behind you any longer, potentially.
They cannot draft off of us.
Yeah, draft off of you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so no nationwide injunctions means if you're not filing those lawsuits as a state AG, your state is losing out.
Yeah, absolutely. So what a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Our audience has seen you before on Midas Touch, and I'm really happy to have you here on Legal AF. Attorney General Kris Mayes of the great state of Arizona. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here.
You as well.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.